relationships using neuroscience-based holistic wellness strategies with emphasis on emotional regulation and mindset training. Listen, Alex isn't a stat, as nobody is, but this is a real story of someone who went from severe burnout to the point of a suicide attempt, and he is here now to share his story because he is a medical professional, educated, capable, trained to help others heal, who lost himself completely in the process of caring for everyone else. This could be any one of us. This could be you. And so I want to share this story, and then I want you to share it with me and for me to the masses, because everyone needs to hear this relatable, raw story that will help bring healing to your life. So let's dive in. If you're done running on empty, surviving shift to shift, and feeling life fatigue, then you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Shan Wright, registered nurse, holistic life coach, and mom of four who found her way through burnout and anxiety to peace and purpose with faith-based practices and God's design for whole person wellness. Here, I help nurses like you recover from burnout, regulate your nervous system, reconnect with God, and discover your identity beyond the badge. Are you ready to start caring for you the way you care for everyone else? I am. Go reheat that coffee again, and let's beat burnout together. Okay, I'm so excited to bring you all this guest today. This is a new friend that I met. I love his energy. I love what he brings to the table. I love his expertise and his knowledge. So I am so excited to welcome Alex to the show.
Thank you very much, Shane.
We connected because you have a really amazing story to share, and one that I'm very connected to personally, but I'm so excited that you are sharing this story because there's so many vulnerabilities in it. And we are here talking about burnout on this podcast where healthcare professionals, they have a lot of knowledge and information and expertise, and they've gone through a lot of life themselves and helped other people with a lot of life. But then when they actually break down and they have their breaking point, it's sometimes hard to share. And we don't love to talk about those secrets that are hiding in our closet all the time. And we just put on masks and we say, nope, I'm good. And so I love that you're sharing your story, and you're doing it in so many different ways, which we'll get into. But let's just start with that. Take us to your story. You're really good at breaking it down. So break it down for us.
Yeah, thanks, Shan. So as a physician assistant for 24 years, I practiced chronic pain management. And so I'm very attuned to this idea that as caregivers, we're constantly giving, and that's the reward we get, is knowing that we're making an impact and we're helping others. But we're the last ones to care for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's where my story kind of took the detour that it did, because I was putting out fires in a lot of different places, trying to help so many different people that I had stretched myself so thin. So on March 23rd of 2022, I tried to commit suicide. How I got there was a perilous road, because I had started working with my brother's college basketball team as a second job, working with athletes, Division I athletes in basketball, to try to help performance through holistic strategies. Mm. And so what happened along the way was I completely fell away from this idea of balance. I got into work mode. I wanted to do everything and anything that I could to improve performance and help my brother out, because we've always had such a great relationship. And so I wanted to support him in any way that I could. But doing a full-time job in medicine nowadays is challenging enough as it is, because of the volume that we have to see. As a nurse, like it was, 20 years ago when I first started, like I was seeing 20 to 25 patients a day.
Yeah.
One of the last jobs that I had, I was seeing 35 to 42 patients a day, and then coming home and doing this work. And so again, completely ignoring my body's physical needs, I started to have all sorts of anxiety. And of course, like you said, we put masks on. And so I did that. No one had any idea the suffering that was going on inside of me, because I think several things. Number one, as a giver, I didn't know how to receive help because I was constantly giving it. I didn't know how to receive it. So there was always an obstacle to asking for help because it almost showed a level of vulnerability and maybe even almost like a hypocrisy. Like, how can I be helping people when I myself am complaining about I'm having anxiety? Like, are they going to think I'm an imposter? And so all of these thoughts were coming through my mind. And then to boot, my brother was having a very difficult season. And it was unrelated to anything that I was doing. But in my mind, I took it in as if I was somehow at fault for the struggles that they were going through. And then meanwhile, I'm also struggling at work because I'm underwater with all of this work. So I started having a lot of rumination, a lot of anxiety that just kept propelling itself and getting worse and worse and worse. And my relationships started to become very affected. There was a lot of things going on in my life at the time as well. My kids were teenagers, and they were starting to kind of buck the system, so to speak, which is very common at that age where they're trying to figure out their place in life. But it was very hard on me because we had always had a very strong connection. And so I had felt disconnection in so many areas of my life that isolation started to take over. And in my mind, I felt like I was alone. I was helpless, started to feel completely hopeless. And looking at it in hindsight, like in reflection now, I think to myself, like, how in the world could I have possibly gotten there? But the truth is that what got me there was a lack of sleep. I started to fall into rumination where I was waking up at night and I was just perseverating on all these thoughts and all these things that were going wrong and nothing that was going right. And my focus was just completely narrowed on all of the negativity in my life. And I pushed everybody away. And in typical form, there's a great book called Burnout that I got to read after the fact. And I started to realize I was suffering every bit of the symptoms. Isolation, everything looked more threatening than what it was. And so, like I mentioned, on March 23rd, 2022, I tried to commit suicide, and I did it in a pretty violent way.
Can I stop?
Yes,
Can I stop you right there before you go into that? This anxiety that we can look back and see was like a flashing sign, like an alert, like on your dashboard, being like, pay attention. I am feeling disconnected from others. I'm feeling like an imposter. I have these negative thoughts going through my head all the time. I'm having perfectionist tendencies and taking on ownership of other people's problems. Like all these things were spiraling and multiplying, and they're all signs. And even as a physician, you didn't pay attention to them. Do you know now, looking back, why you didn't pay attention to them? Why you just let them keep going and piling up?
Yeah, great question. So what had happened after the fact during my recovery is I remember even mentioning this during group therapy. I said, I don't ever want to end up in this place again. So I need to know why. So I dug deep to figure out the physiology of burnout, to figure out what it was that was happening. And what's wild about it is that when you have excessive cortisol levels for an extended period of time, your body is needing rest. It's needing recovery. But again, as an imposter, or at the very least having that syndrome, you push past it. And that's what I did. I kept pushing past the alarms. I wasn't paying attention to it.
Right.
The reason being is that the way the brain interprets that situation is it's such a big threat that it begins to narrow focus so much. And all it does is just drive the fight or flight response to go greater and greater and greater to the release of more chemistry. And there was one chemical that I came across in my research called tachykinins, that what they do is they take the threat and amplify this threat in the mind to such a degree that you are stuck in a stress loop the entire time. So you can't see from a place of rationality. It's almost, well, it's not. The prefrontal cortex becomes so bombarded with threat that all it's doing the entire time is trying to solve the problem, but it's in a circular fashion that it can't ever get to it.
Right. Gosh, it's like you see this with your kids, right? When they don't even have a formed prefrontal cortex and fully formed, and they are just literally spiraling with these irrational thoughts. And you try to break through, and you're like, can you hear yourself? But they can't. And it is just wild. And it's in those moments that I try to get, this is what a tactic that we've done. Obviously breath work, which we'll go into, but with my one child who really does struggle with anxiety, is I get her to speak. I'm like, you need to tell your brain what to think right now, because it doesn't know how to think. It literally is on this loop, like you're saying, in this irrational world, making up stories and lies, and you need to tell it different. And so I have to say it because she's still stuck. So I, as the parent, need to step in and say this, and she needs to hear it, and then she needs to say it. Sometimes it's written down, so like she can't even hear. Sometimes it's like, read that now. Like it is just it's a battle, but it's like, I know I'm just trying to break through, and it works, but it is hard. What if I told you in just 5 minutes, you're going to reset your nervous system, recalibrate your mind, and reconnect with the truth of your identity? Yes, that's all it takes. I've created the STAT protocol. This is a 5-minute nervous system reset and mental shift for burnout nurses. If you're exhausted, bone tired, soul tired, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix, I've got you. This guide is your permission slip to pause, breathe, and remember who you are beneath the scrubs. You can grab it right now at www.theshanwright.com/stat. The link is also in the show notes. This is a free gift. Go grab it right now and find rest for your soul.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned to do with athletes, the high-performing athletes I work with, is when they get stuck in a stress loop, which happens often, is tell them, ask a question. Why am I feeling this way?
Mm-hmm.
Or what is it about the situation that's provoking me to have circular thinking?
Yes.
Once you ask a question, you bring the prefrontal cortex back online, because it's coming from a place of curiosity. It's a place that requires rationality.
Yes. I realized this years ago in my own anxiety journey. And I told my husband, I said, and this was in a sane moment, a calm moment. I said, I want you to know this, that I never want to talk to you mean. I don't want to snap at you. I don't want to talk to you angrily. I want to be calm and gentle and loving with my words to you at all times. If I ever do not do that, can you know that I'm anxious about something? And can you stop me? Can you literally help me? I need your help. Can you ask me what I'm anxious about? Don't try to take the words offense. Please do not be offended by the words. Just literally stop me in my track, because I need help to get out of it. And it has been so helpful, even just voicing that and saying, that's actually my issue. And then I'll find myself asking the question, because he might not do it, or I'm snapping at my kids and not my husband. And then I'm like, Shan, what are you anxious about? And then I stop myself. So even voicing that, I'm like, oh, this is what I need. I need to get out. So that is so good that you teach your athletes that too. It is super helpful.
Let me give you a strong pat on the back. That is a beautiful way to create partnership with your husband.
Yeah.
Just to be vulnerable and just tell him, listen, this is what's going on. Because most of us look at that like a character flaw. Stress, it's not a character flaw, it's biology.
Yeah.
Literally, adrenaline and cortisol bombarding our system and making us act in a way that's not our set point. It's not our norm. But then we feel shame and guilt afterwards, and it creates a cycle that continues to perpetuate this anger, shame, guilt that repeats itself over and over again. And in partnerships in particular, because I have the advantage of working with Division I athletes, but at the same time, a lot of my work, not to use another term, but bleeds into the family. And they start to do a lot of the same practices. And next thing you know, their relationships are starting to get better and their inner circle is tightening.
Yeah.
But it's things like this that if we just learn to communicate through them
Yeah.
and set and create the clear communication at the times when we're safe and we feel secure,
Yeah.
not at the times that we're uncomfortable and feel unsafe. Those are the times that's not when you resolve the issue. You resolve the issue beforehand and you set the expectations, the
Yeah.
boundaries, so to speak. And that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, let's jump back
Yeah,
to your
yeah, yeah.
story that day you were just going into March 23rd, 2022.
Yeah. So my story, like I focus on that moment in time just to get people to understand where I went.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I can't even see that ever being an option again,
Right.
simply because now I know better,
Mm-hmm.
know how to care for myself now in so many different ways. I know who to keep around me, which is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I know where my spirit is connected at all times now, where
Yeah.
before it was like I was just disharmonious and just disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So my story is more about the recovery. It's more about the understanding what I gained from that situation rather than what got me there.
Yeah.
I'm very aware of what got me there, but at the same time, I'm more aware now of what I need to do to never be there again.
Yeah.
And so I went through 14-day hospitalization, and then I ended up starting group therapy and PHP and IOP program at a local hospital. And I was there for 10 weeks. And I learned so much during that time. One of the things that I learned about that really impacted my life since then is cognitive biases, the mental shortcuts that we create that happen again, as you were talking about your children earlier, that happens to us in childhood because everything is black and white at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of our foundational thinking that's fear-based comes from that time where something happens in our environment, in our space, and we have to make a rapid decision. And it's typically black or white, very binary. And that becomes the foundation that runs our subconscious for certain behaviors, certain patterns that we express. So I learned that, and it helped me to start to reverse engineer a lot of the ways that I was approaching life.
Mm-hmm.
Started to see a lot of my blind spots because they existed there. And we all
Yeah.
have them.
Right.
And stress is what typically brings forth a lot of these blind spots and behavior that we're not aware of most of the time. Because again, especially being caregivers, our empathy network and our compassion network is so great that we're usually sitting in a place of positivity and trying to uplift the people around us. So
Mm-hmm.
the tendency is our shortcomings don't pop forward very easily.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. That's a really good point. Because yeah, your conscious is sitting in this, like you said, in this place of encouragement, and I've got to wear courage right now because I've got to expose that to this patient that needs, they're fighting for their life. So I'm here being present, and that's what I have to show forth. And then those blind spots of our own self continue to be buried, actually more and more, to where if they aren't revealed and like dug up, then they just get pushed further.
Yeah, yeah, and they run unconsciously patterns, and like I said, it's normally stress that provokes these patterns to pop forward,
Yeah.
and that's where I started to begin to notice in my own character that I would over-identify with feeling a sense of guilt because I did have a high level of perfectionism. It's very common in our industry to be that way because we want to be so much for everybody else
Mhm.
that we almost hold ourselves to an unrealistic standard.
Yeah.
And when I started to ground myself in this idea that life is not about perfection, it's about progress, it's about evolving, it's about learning and growing, it became easy for me to have self compassion and empathy for me for the first time ever because I'd never
Hmm.
even brought that into awareness. It wasn't something that I
Hmm.
even considered.
Yeah. I think before you had said this word, which I think is so important for our nurses and healthcare professionals to hear, is receive.
Mm.
That's what you're saying now is like, we don't know how to receive empathy and compassion for ourselves, yet we're trying to give it.
Right.
And it's like, it's that whole cliche statement that I really don't like saying, but I have to, because what else we're going to say, where you can't pour from an empty cup. But that's where it comes. It's like, if we're not receiving anything like empathy, compassion, love, peace, if we don't have it inside of us, how do we give it out? We
Right.
just try to manufacture it.
Right. And it's because we have such robust networks in the brain to be
Yeah.
able to produce and give that eventually we do end up in times when, again, if we're bombarded with a lot of challenges at once outside of our work life, now all of a sudden it becomes very hard to give because we are
Yeah.
an empty cup. But to learn to receive, this is the beauty of it. We don't require a lot. That's what I learned, is that if I sat with a compliment, when someone said to me, hey, thank you very much for what you've done, because in the past, what I would normally do is, oh, no problem. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, yeah. It's almost as if like I had this guard around me,
Yeah.
armor. It was like, no, no, no. Because I almost thought if I allowed that in, that I would grow in arrogance. That was
Yeah.
something that was part of my mental framework as a child, that I had to stay humble all the time. And it's almost like, again, a cognitive bias. It's like I created this shortcut that, no, it's not about that. It's about allowing people to give me the gift of their thoughts and their heart,
Mhm.
and allowing me to open my heart and say, thank you so much in that moment, and recognize that viscerally, not just intellectually, feel
Yeah.
it in the body. And that started to change so much for me, because I started to become much more grounded in the moment rather than thinking about what I had to do next, how I could lift them up more. They were
Yeah.
helping me. It was like a recycled energy.
Exactly. Because when you receive it, they feel that. That changes them.
Yes.
And this is, oh my gosh, when did I realize this? I think I was like doing some Enneagram work, which I don't really do that anymore, but I was like looking into the Enneagram, and I tested as a reformer, which is Enneagram 1.
Hmm.
Most perfectionists are. And in that, it said one of the testing things was you can't receive compliments and you have a hard time giving them. Well, because both ways, if you can't give, you can't receive. And if you can't receive, you can't give. So it's just like, it makes so much sense what you're saying is happening in our brains as to why we can't do that. And then how it actually is shooting ourselves in the foot even more.
Yeah. And the truth is that the reason why it's so foreign to us, and this is what I began to realize about myself, is that I had never developed the skill.
Mm-hmm.
All of life is skill building. It's about
Mm-hmm.
practice. That's
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of having faith, is that you realize that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to make progress every day.
Yeah.
And progress is represented in the brain by creating ease in making in getting better at the skill that you're practicing.
Yeah.
And so that receiving, I was terrible at it at first, but as I continued to practice it, I started to get better and better and better. And like you said, my giving actually multiplied. Now it's like I give from this place where I'm always full. And it's
An
why I say,
overflow.
yeah, it's overflow, because it's not like a place of scarcity anymore. It's this abundance on the inside, that all I want is for people to feel what I feel every day,
Mm-hmm.
like this self-compassion and love for the being that I am, for the gift that life is, that I just want people to experience that. I want them to see that every day. But it's a skill that must be built. It's not something you can't, it's not a light switch. You don't just
Yeah.
manifest this in your mind. This is a practice. It's something that you do every day. And what I found is, as I started to practice this and loving myself from an internal place, my environment began to shift. My
Mm.
relationship with my kids got so much better. It was always good, but it got deeper. Like, they're 19 and 22 now. So they actually like hanging around with me. We go camping, we do things together that it's like, it's connecting and it's beautiful. My families, all of my relationships, they tightened. They got so much better, so much more depth,
Yeah.
because
So
the
how did
presence is there. Sorry.
Yeah. And how did you learn how to receive?
So it was in the small actions. That's what and so I coach on that.
Mm-hmm.
We both know it. It's not about the monumental shift. It's about the small actions that you commit to every day. And it was in the presence of being with somebody and allowing them to tell me, hey, thank you so much for the simple things.
Uh-huh.
It was walking and actually putting my phone down and appreciating what was around me.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of receiving is also being connected to the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The more present we can be, the more gratitude you can express for everything that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was stuck most of my life in pursuit. I was always
Yeah.
looking towards some future event to bring me some sort of satisfaction. So I
Yeah.
had started to move away from the simplicity of life. That was one of my recovery points, was learning to rediscover the beauty and the simplicity of life, like the flowers, the birds, like
Yeah.
the sky, like simple
Yeah.
things that I would just walk past or stuck on my phone looking at what was going on
Yeah.
social media or what's going on in the news.
Yeah.
I chose to stay connected to the degree that I need to, but I've now expanded my awareness to include a practice on a daily basis that involves nature, that involves being with people, not actively listening, like
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be with them rather than thinking, oh, I've got to go do this and I've got to do that, and not being present.
Yeah. So I hear you saying like tuning into your senses. Like we
Yes.
have five senses, and uh, with our nervous system is through life shut down some of these senses from really being activated through our stress response. We're trying to keep our body safe, so then it literally physiologically will shut down some of our senses for that, to keep us protected from the bear and all of that. It's like you're tuning into your body. Like when you said, I receive the compliment and I feel it viscerally. I feel like that has a lot to do with your background in pain. But I was talking to another pain coach, and we were talking about, just feeling, literally feeling your nerves again. Remember, our nervous system is massive, and it's not just these big physiological things that we feel like our heart pounding out of our chest and sweating, but it's like our little nerves that are everywhere and like feeling them. And so even you saying being aware of like, what does it feel like when someone gives me a compliment of wow, that was really good work that you did. What did that feel like in my body? I ask my clients that question sometimes, or about something else, and I'm like, what did that feel like? And it literally goes over their head. They're like, I don't know. It's like we don't know.
Yeah, that's a great point because we live, particularly in medicine, we live in a very logical space. So the mind's resources are allocated towards logic, rationality, reason, trying to solve problems. So we disembody ourselves
Mm-hmm.
from the sensation of feeling, not to mention that because we're giving all the time, we're consuming all of these resources. And so it wasn't until I started meditating, prayer, practicing yoga that I started to reconnect with my body,
Mm-hmm.
the sensation of feeling sense of the body. And
Yeah.
that's where I would tell you, because I always exercised, I did triathlons, I ran marathons, all this kind of stuff. But it wasn't until I started practicing yoga that I started connecting mind with body at the same time.
Yeah.
That started to change things. Sitting in meditation, just feeling what it feels like to be alive. Because
Yeah.
that's where meditation kind of becomes a project that people get lost in. They think that there's some like peaceful place that they have to end up in, like a mountaintop or something like that. It's not like
Yeah.
that. It's literally just re-engage with what it feels like to feel your toes.
I was just going to say that. I think this is a good practice that I haven't done in years, but like laying down flat and focusing on starting with your toes. And then
Mm-hmm.
I was going to go back to the point where you said gratitude, like literally feeling your toes wiggle. What does it feel like to have the blood like rush down to your toes? And then thinking all the things that you're thankful for your toes.
Yes.
And then going all the way up your entire, and because we're healthcare professionals, we know all the organ systems and
Yes.
we can literally spend like weeks going through and just being grateful for our bodies.
Are you giving me chills? Like seriously. So one of the practices that I can't wait to tell you this. One of the practices that I did, again, that's why I said yoga for me was because I dug deep into the philosophy, the science, Ayurveda, all of it, because of what I do for a living. But one of the practices that I started doing during a yin yoga practice was to give gratitude to every organ in my body,
Mm-hmm.
starting with my skin, going through all the legs up into the abdomen, brain, eyes, ears, all of it. And I would literally take my attention and focus it on the body parts while I was
Right.
doing it, and almost sending love to it as much as I possibly could in such like deep gratitude for the function that they do, because that's the part that most of us don't realize is we're these conscious awareness beings, but we don't realize that our liver, heart, our brain, they never take a vacation.
Right.
Thank goodness they don't, because if they did,
Right.
adios amigo. Like
Yeah.
we're not going to survive. But we don't ever
Yeah.
give that any thought. By connecting our awareness with these body parts, we're increasing the proprioceptive connection, which is what begins to aliven this visceral feeling, this visceral
Mm-hmm.
connection. So when you
Mm-hmm.
said, what does it feel like to receive? For me, it feels like a warm hug now.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Yeah.
sensation inside, like, wow, like that's what it feels like for somebody to show me their expression of love towards me, because
Yeah.
that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to lift me up. It's exactly the practice that I'm trying to do all the time for everybody else. Why can't
Right.
I allow myself to receive that? And that's where I started to connect with that feeling. And it's like so good.
So good. Okay, so on the topic of body, we both love a holistic practice that is tuning into your body and your mind, and that's breath work.
Yes.
And it brings so much healing. So I would love to know how breath work was part of your burnout recovery.
Yeah. So breath, I mean, it's the greatest anchor we have. And so whenever I think of my faith, I think of God. I think of God being everywhere. God is in the breath. Like
Okay,
that's
did
how
you?
I look at it.
I just heard this the other day, although I think I heard it before, but I had forgotten it that the name for God that
Mm-hmm.
we are not supposed to speak is Yahweh, because it's so holy, but yet we say it in the English language, Yahweh. It means breath. And so it's that's the sound of it is just breath. And so when you speak it, we only have breath because God gave it to us. So it's when we're practicing this breathing, it's like we are literally coming in tune with our breath and God and being given breath. And it is a form of gratitude if we allow ourselves to get to that place of receiving it as it for what it is, instead of just being like taking it for granted. And I breathe because I'm a human being and that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah. Like you mentioned, we both approach our clients holistically. The way that
Yeah.
I do it is like breath is during my recovery. It was breath was my connection to the divine. He
Yeah.
breathed life into man. How he got us started. I always look at it like this is the best connection that I can have to him. And when you think about breath, of all of the facets of health, we live the least amount of time without breath. In wilderness medicine, they say 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 minutes. 3 minutes without breath, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Yet in health and wellness, they focus so much on food. Nobody focuses on the breath. And to me, the breath is always with you. The breath is connected you, it's connecting your physical body to life,
Hmm.
right? And when you're present with it, you're exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. So what I learned about anxiety was if I could notice my breath at all times, especially when the times where I felt the stir of anxiety viscerally in my body, my heartbeat racing, maybe pushing out, maybe feeling a sense of agitation, irritability, mood swing, then I'd know that I was either holding my breath or I was shallow breathing.
Hmm.
And I started to use that during meditation. I would sit with whenever I had discomfort throughout the day. I'd think of the moment and I'd start to notice what breathing pattern would start to occur. And that awareness started to expand to the moments when I was with people and I would feel that trigger, so to speak, that would
Yeah.
induce that stress. and noticed that my breathing pattern would get shallow each time. So then my practice really got anchored into the breath, and I started to work on my diaphragm. Because a lot of us, again, they don't teach us this in school, the power of the diaphragm. It's 70% of our breathing ability when it's properly trained. So to focus on a deep diaphragm, 360-degree breath, that's a game changer. Because at any given time, you can give yourself a complete break from whatever stress cycle you're in by just taking a deep breath in and reducing that carbon dioxide load, which is huge because the amygdala gets triggered by higher levels of carbon dioxide. And so when I'm working with athletes, they're constantly under stress. They're stepping into the unknown at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So I anchor them to the breath because it's what's truly saved me. It's what's kept me in this place that I honestly, like I live in this place of peace and love. And it's not like this, I bypassed the spirituality and I tell myself this every day. I literally feel this every day.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful place to be. And when I don't feel it, it's usually because I'm consuming something that's taking me out of it, or I'm with somebody that's just out of their minds and I'm providing a container space to try to bring them back down. But most of the time, this is life now because again, it's back to this idea of just appreciating it for everything it is. But it starts with the breath. I think breath work is huge.
Yeah, I think we just try to complicate everything. And it's like, oh, you're telling me I need to breathe differently, better, more. And I'm like, yes, that actually will bring you healing. And then we might hear the simple tactic and then we're like, okay, well, I'll do that tomorrow, or I'll sit there and meditate and do my breath work tomorrow or the next, And so we're like, that sounds so simple. So I'm actually not going to do it. I'm going to tell my body, my brain that I'm going to do it. I'm just not going to do it because it seems like that simple thing isn't actually going to help me.
Right. But there's so many practices and there's so many breathing practices. But one that I anchor most of my clients in is box breathing.
Yeah. It's so
Because
easy.
box breathing is so easy. You can do it anytime. You could be in traffic.
Yeah.
Literally practice box breathing. Again, do it in the safety of your home first to make sure that your timing is right and you're not getting dizzy when you're doing your breath holds. But you can practice this and you start to create more carbon dioxide tolerance in your system. So now your amygdala doesn't get triggered as easy. So when the stress hits, you're not reacting in the same way. You're becoming more responsive. Again, anchoring into your breath in the moment. Another great practice, and I'm not sure if you practice Wim Hof or if you've heard of Wim Hof breathing, it's a cyclic hyperventilation. So you're literally inducing a stress response.
Oh,
And then you do a breath hold. And the beauty of it is multiple fold. One is it actually strengthens your immune system. So literally, I haven't been sick in like 4 years. I do this breath pattern every morning. The other thing it does is, and this has been proven by labs, Andrew Huberman's lab has proven this, that it actually increases stress resilience.
okay.
Because you're basically introducing a stress that you're controlling to your body.
Yeah.
And your body now has a chance to see what it feels like to have that adrenaline pump of the cyclic hyperventilation and sitting with it. So
Yeah.
basically,
It's like a sauna or something, like you're
correct.
inducing the stress and
Yes. So it's a eustress. It's something like working out, like sauna, like ice baths. You're literally in a controlled environment. You're managing it, so you're empowering yourself to be able to tolerate the stress better.
yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. I am like looking at the time and I'm like, oh, we've got to go, but I want to keep talking. We might just have to have you back on another time to talk. I don't know. We'll think of one of your other things because we could sit here and talk about this forever.
I would love to.
It has been so good to have you. Thank you for sharing your story. And I do want to mention you have your story like in depth written in a book called Spectrum.
Yes. Yeah.
It,
Spectrum, a galvanizing journey. Yeah.
okay. And I will say, I mean, I've already told you this, but I love the book. It is just so relatable. You hear this amazing story. Obviously, you lived through burnout and suicide attempt, and you came out a totally different person that is so resilient to those things. And then, like you said, just overflowing with peace and love. And in the book, you can see that, and you just walk us through it beautifully with how it wasn't just like a straight line to get there. You take us through your different seasons of recovery and working through them step by step and being like, okay, now I learned this. Now this happened, but now I'm going to do like through the stressors, through life, like literal life that lifed. And then you just kept rising above it because you practiced these holistic, simple, faith-based things that brought you to the place where you are now. And then you share it and you tell us exactly what to do, which I love how you're so practical at the end of the book there. And so anyway, grab the book. It's amazing. Then share it with someone who needs it. So thank you, Alex, so much for writing it. Thank you for being here today.
Shan, thank you so much. This is actually a very invigorating conversation, and I look forward to the next one.
I pray that blessed you, and it would bless me big if you would share the show with a friend or write a review. It will only take a few minutes, and it's the best way for people to find the show too. I would love to connect over on Instagram at @theshanwright, or you can email me hello@theshanwright.com. And until next time, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace. Shalom.